Hey everybody, we can go ahead and get started. I'm Amy Hewitt and I have been a CAE since I believe 2015, 2017. I forget which year, but I've had to renew twice. So gone through a couple cycles and was a very active participant in the CAE, VSAE CAE study group. I did the study group multiple times because I wasn't quite ready to take the test and have all the hours at one point. So, and I've facilitated numerous times on different domains, so happy to answer any questions that you all may have. I will say my one piece of advice that I always give people is if you haven't already, if you're planning to take the test in the spring here and you haven't already started to take practice tests, to go ahead and do that. I know back when I did it, there was a code in the back of the study guide, and just like crack it open and go through the practice test, the practice questions as many times, because the more you go through it, you see different questions. And there, at least a few years ago, there were questions in the study guide that would show up on the exam. So just having that exposure to it was a really key thing. So I work for the Virginia Healthcare Association, and I have over 20 years experience in association management and government affairs and communication, strategic planning work. So happy to answer any of those kind of questions. And I'm kind of curious here. I usually like to see faces on a Zoom rather than a PowerPoint presentation. So I don't know what you all feel. Chrissy said that in prior sessions, people shared the slides, which I'm happy to do, or if you just want it to be more conversational, if you guys all have the study guide questions in front of you, we can do that. So sort of any preferences on that?
I like seeing them personally when we go through the questions. I think that helps to read through and go through the,
Okay.
process.
Okay, let me share my screen here and get it up for y'all. Are you seeing it? Let me put it in the slide mode. Are you all seeing it or no?
Yes, you can see that.
Okay, hold on a second.
It's in presentation mode right now, though.
Yeah, let me. Are you seeing it now? No. Hold on. Sorry. You think I know how to do this by now? Are you seeing it now?
We can see the presentation. It's just in the PowerPoint view.
Yeah, when I switch it to the run view, I forget what we call that. It's taking over my whole screen, and so then I can't see the Zoom. Let's see. We'll try it again. Okay. Does that work? You guys are seeing the first question?
Works for me.
Yep, works for me.
So when you guys have done this before, do you have different people read through each question and then sort of discuss the answers as we go? That's sort of been my habit.
Yeah, usually our people or the prior presenters have had us read through the question, us take turns reading through the question and answering, coming up with our answers. One of the presenters had us like put our own thoughts of what the answer is in the chat too.
Okay. Yeah, so why don't, see, I'm just not able to see the chat or anything right now. There we go. Okay, so does somebody want to go ahead and read the first one and then we'll talk about it? And or backing up a little bit, do you guys have any general questions about advocacy or any of the topics that you reviewed in terms of coalition building, the legal issues, and or have you all heard sort of all the CAE exam study tips on like LERP and SPE, those kinds of things, and how they're forming your decision making as you go along with the questions?
Yeah, our first presenter went over the SPE and the LERP. I confess, I can remember the scan, plan, implement, evaluate, but not the LERP.
LERP, and it does have some bearing on the advocacy. So LERP is it legal? Is it ethical? Now I'm forgetting what they are. Is it relational? Is it personal? And so that oftentimes the question is it legal? If something's not legal, then you shouldn't do it. And so that does come in terms of the lobbying rules and setting up the PAC and knowing what the PAC contribution limits are. Those are, remember, you're first asking that legal question and then going to whether it's ethical and down the line. And I have some notes and cheat sheets that people have shared over the years, which I can forward to Chrissy to give you all, that just have, a whole bunch of the acronyms and things like that to share with you guys. So I'll do that following the call.
Thank you. That's great.
So I'll just kick things off. I'll do the first question and then we can rotate through as you guys want to volunteer for the other ones.
Amy?
So yes.
Oh, I put in chat. I think you can't see it. I have to be silent participant starting at noon because preschool pickup is at 12:15. So I'm happy to do the first one.
Okay, go for it then. Go for it. Thank you
All
for
right.
volunteering.
Tracking or monitoring legislative activity can be done best by which of the following? A, monitoring news reports. B, working with your local elected representative. C, developing, oh,
Sorry.
that's okay.
Can you see it now?
Developing, yeah. Developing positive relationships with organizations with similar government relations objectives. Or D, developing positive relationships with elected representatives and legislative staff of committees in the same subject areas.
So remember, we're doing the broadest thing is also another tip, and the thing that gives you the biggest view of what's going on as you're thinking like a chief staff executive of a national international trade association that's well financed and has all the resources it needs to do everything in an ideal association environment.
I want to say that it's C, but I'm not super confident.
So does anybody else have any other thoughts on this one?
I was thinking D, developing positive relationships with elected representatives and legislative staff.
Yeah, I think that's the best answer. I think C better serves you if you're doing coalition building, because then you're finding those like-minded organizations that may have the same type of public policy or legislative goal as you are. So C to me comes in as a better answer for something related to coalitions. Whereas if you're doing lobbying, government affairs, advocacy work, you've got to know your legislators who are going to be putting in bills for you or offering amendments and that kind of things. And then the committee staff, they're doing a lot of the work. So D is your best answer here.
That always throws me the best answer.
Yeah, and so it's really that process of elimination, right?
Yeah.
Like news reports are probably
That's a given.
not timely enough, so that's why you'd rule out A. Working, when you look at B versus D, you know, working with your local elected representatives is great, but it may be that you need somebody who sits on a committee of jurisdiction that affects what you're doing, and that's not your local person. And so that's why it's developing. D is the broader answer because it's the people. You're not limiting it to your local elected representatives. It's the people who have the right expertise or committee assignments, et cetera. And you're getting to that in D versus B. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, question 2. Somebody want to go ahead and just jump in?
I can take that one. Number 2, active lobbying is subject to government regulation. To ensure that your association complies with applicable laws and regulations, you should do which of the following? Avoid taking controversial positions. Hire a lobbyist and let him/her handle everything. Design only education programs and never meet with legislators or staff. Become familiar and follow any laws and regulations and consult your attorney and accountant. I would say D on this one, become familiar with and follow any laws and regulations.
Yeah, again, I think that tip of anything that's referencing, make sure it's legal, check with your accountant to make sure it's on the up and up is how we get to that as the best answer there. You know, just going through the answers in terms of how you'd eliminate them, you may, as your association, have a controversial position, so that A doesn't seem to make sense, and controversial is subjective depending on where you stand on an issue. You know, B, hiring a lobbyist to let him or her handle everything isn't really the best practice in terms of that phrase at the end, handle everything. You obviously would want to be managing and discussing regularly with your lobbyist about what your goals and objectives are, and having an information flow back and forth on that, so that handling everything language is what rules that out as a good answer. And then obviously lots of associations are involved in advocacy, so designing only education programs is too limiting. So, you know, when we're looking at the questions, it's those terms that are, you know, only everything that, you know, or how you can eliminate some of the answer options to get to the best one, which here is D. Move on to our next question. This PAC related one. Somebody want to jump in on this one?
I take it. The National Association of Independent Restaurant Owners is in the process of forming a political action committee. The board of directors would like to promote the PAC to the membership and is trying to identify an eye-catching name to assist in its efforts. What name should the association register the PAC? A, IRO-PAC, B, Restaurant Owners Political Action Fund, C, National Association of Independent Restaurant Owners Political Action Fund, D, National Association of Independent Restaurant Owners Political Action Committee. I'm between A and B here because those are the simplest to me, and it would seem that would help lend itself to an eye-catching name. The other two seem to be very comprehensive, but too long, in my opinion. So I'm just going to go with A for the alphabet soup of it all.
Does anybody have any other thoughts on this one?
I was gonna say, I actually was gonna say D, which is an insanely long name. But I thought just since it encompasses all of it, but that's not eye-catching.
Yeah, okay. So a couple of things to talk about here. D is the correct answer. And in looking at the question, just because the board wants an eye-catching name doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. This is one where I think it's a requirement that or at least highly suggested, and I don't know if it's in any of the reading materials or anything, but the name of the PAC needs to match the name of the organization, and it needs to be Political Action Committee. So that's why you can eliminate B and C because they say fund instead of, the entities are called political action committees. And then to get your answer right between A and D is the name of the association as National Association of Independent Restaurant Owners, PAC. So IRO is missing that national association part. And so you would eliminate that. And I know, like for my own organization, we're the Virginia Healthcare Association. We go by VHCA. We call our PAC VHCA PAC. And that's sort of the modeling that best practice approach to the PAC. And just a word, I'm just interjecting this here. I don't know how many of you are with state associations, particularly in Virginia. You have to remember for the exam that you need to think of it at the federal level, and what we can do with state PACs is different than what's allowed under the federal laws. And so, just make sure you're familiar with those nuances. Like, for example, in Virginia, political action committees can take corporate funds and there's no limits. That's not the case at the federal level. And so, again, just remember the lens through which you're looking at your questions and information to take the test, and not necessarily do what you might do here in Virginia. But high level answer, when you're naming a PAC, you need to take your association name and put political action committee at the end of it. Any questions about PACs? Good too. Okay, question 4 on grassroots lobbying. Does somebody want to take that one?
I'll take one last before I go dark.
Okay, thanks.
Which of the following is true regarding an association's expenditures for grassroots lobbying? A, they are deductible expenses that may affect members' dues. They are stringent laws against soliciting public letter writing or phone calling to influence policy decisions. C, they are non-deductible and ineligible for inclusion under the $2,000 exception for minimal in-house lobbying activities. Or D, they are typical lobbying expenses and therefore eligible for inclusion under the $2,000 exception for minimal in-house lobbying activities. That was a lot. I'm gonna go with D.
Anyone have any other thoughts or comments on this one? So the answer on this one is C. Excuse me, the expenses are non-deductible and ineligible for inclusion under the $2,000 exception for minimal in-house lobbying. And I think this is just one of those legal requirements to memorize. And in terms of the process of elimination on the questions, I think, B is the one you can eliminate right off the bat because there are stringent laws against soliciting public letter writing or phone calling. I mean, there's not. That is what organizations do. It's a huge part of grassroots efforts to get emails sent in or get people to make phone calls. I'm sure you see that when you see political ads popping up on your news feeds or on television. And then for the other answers, it's just a matter of knowing that they're non-deductible, because with that, then you can, looking at A, C, and D, get you to the right answer there. All right. Next one. Any questions on that one before we move on? So question number 5.
I can take this.
Okay.
What entity establishes the rules for registration of a federal lobbyist? A federal court, federal legislature, state elections commission, federal election commission. Well, we can take out C immediately, since we're looking for federal lobbyist. I want to say B, federal, B or D. I feel like I'm in between. Yeah, one of those two.
Yeah, you're close. It was a good way to narrow it down. So, as I understand that, the Federal Election Commission would be monitoring what candidates who are campaigning are doing and sort of how they fundraise and how they run their campaigns. But the legislator, the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate, they're setting the rules in terms of how lobbyists contact legislators and have interactions with staffers and things like that. So the answer is B, the federal legislature.
Could have just gone with my first gut choice there.
Yeah, you were there, right? And sometimes you do just have to go with your gut and don't overthink it. As one of my friends would another CAE friend, when we studied, she'd try to parse it into too many things. So yeah, if you're not sure, sometimes your gut's the way to go. Okay, how about our next one then? Our Old Sailors Association.
Name. Okay, an influential board member of the National Association for Preservation of Old Sailors wants to support a personal friend in a political campaign. During a board meeting, she encourages other board members and you, the chief staff executive, to take several actions in support of this candidate. What action can members take? A, write a personal check to the campaign. B, have the organization's PAC write a check to the campaign. C, authorize that an association check be written to the campaign. Or D, place an article in the Association Foundations magazine advocating the candidate's election. Okay, so what action can members take? So again, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I mean, in terms of what members can do, my default would be write a personal check. But it seems like the rest of the question is kind of asking more what the organization can do. So then my answer would be B, would be have the organization's PAC write a check, because you wouldn't want to authorize that an association check be written to the campaign. Those things kind of have to be kept separate. Again, place an article in the Foundations magazine. I wouldn't think that a foundation would want to be necessarily taking a political position. So I guess I'm kind of torn between A and B based on kind of maybe misunderstanding exactly who would be taking the action.
Yeah, so I think your thought process is really good, and your gut instinct at the top was the right way to go. The answer is A, writing the personal check.
Okay.
And you were smart to focus in on the what action can members take part, but then I think looking at the first part of the question, the board member wants to support a personal friend. And so it's not somebody that the PAC has determined is right on the issues and
Right.
would be supportive of the association's policy priorities and that kind of thing. And that is, if you had that and the board had, the PAC board had authorized candidate contributions, that's how you would get to B. But because it's a personal friend, it's a board member asking for support of a personal friend, and then it's the individual action to be taken by a member. That's how you get to A.
Okay.
Writing the personal check. Yeah, but eliminating the other questions because, C, we're not using association funds to make political contributions, and we're not mixing our foundation, which is probably a 501c3, with our political action committee. Good ways to eliminate C and D. And then our next question. Anybody want to take this one? We're still in our PAC world.
I can give it a go. As a result of a board member's work on behalf of a candidate, the association's staff lobbyist receives an invitation to attend a national political fundraiser that costs $500. The PAC has not yet decided to support the candidate. If the lobbyist decides to attend, from what source should the $500 payment come? A, the PAC fund. B, the association's operating budget. C, a personal check from the lobbyist attending. D, a personal check from the lobbyist reimbursable by the association. In thinking this through, I don't think it's A or B. So I'm trying to decide whether it's just a personal check from the lobbyist or would the association reimburse the lobbyist for attending. But I think it would be C, since the PAC and association haven't really made a decision on whether or not they're supporting the candidate, and it's an action being taken by the lobbyist on their own. So I'm going with C is my reasoning.
Yeah, good. So you can eliminate A because it says right there the PAC is not decided, so it's not going to be a PAC check. The association's operating budget. You don't use association funds to make PAC contributions, and that's then also how you can eliminate D, because it says reimbursable by the association, and that's just not an appropriate way to handle it. So that leaves you with C, the personal check, again, similar to the prior question. Now on to coalitions. Somebody want to take this one?
I could take this one. The National Coalition for Underprivileged Youth comprises many partners in education and government, yet each entity has a unique mission and vision. Which of the following is a crucial initial step to ensure that all partners work together for the same purpose regarding their joint venture? Create a statement of purpose based on input from all partners. Define core issues for the venture and create an immediate focus. Develop a statement of purpose and have each partner's staff executive sign and date it. Direct a staff member to assign duties to each partner and follow up on a routine basis. I would go with A here, creating a statement of purpose from everyone's input.
Anyone have any other thoughts on this one? I think if we're looking at the question and it says, which of the following is a crucial initial step, that the creating a statement of purpose sounds like a first step, but you wouldn't have done that until you first define the core issues and major focus. So really, you've got to sort of all sit around and talk and define your core issues before then you would develop a statement of purpose. So the answer is B.
Okay.
And it's again that nuance, and going back and looking at the question and, whether, in the previous one, it was like, what would the member do? Or here it's those words to circle in the question are the crucial initial step. And it's getting everybody together to talk about, what it is that's pulling them together in the coalition. And then from that, you develop the statement. So B is our answer on this one.
Thanks for that feedback.
Yeah, it's tough to like get that nuance again, like orienting your thinking to what are the first steps and or scanning, planning, implementing, evaluating, and those kind of things of just having the right mindset on. It's tough to parse some of these, and keep in mind I've been through these questions multiple times and have the answer key, but. Talking it through and seeing why you can rule out or choose different answers helps along the way. Here we go for our next one.
Yeah, I think it's me. You just received notice that new legislation that would have a negative impact on your membership may be presented in the upcoming session. Sounds like my life. What should you do first to position your organization to contest this legislation? A, write letters to all members of the Senate and the House of Representatives. B, identify other organizations that may be impacted and join forces to fight the legislation. C, it is the hired lobbyist's responsibility to handle these issues and inform members directly. D, post live updates and news items pertaining to the legislation on the association's website. What should you do first to position your organization? Again, so process of elimination for me here is A, write letters to all members of the Senate and House of Representatives. That's jumping the gun a bit. C, again, I think like assumes you have a hired lobbyist. And that, again, it's only their job, which I just philosophically don't agree with. I don't know if that's right or wrong. So that is down to B and D. And I feel like you have to kind of educate the members sometimes on why something would be bad, or kind of bring it to their attention so that they can be kind of your grassroots advocate. So I would go with D, posting updates and news items pertaining to this legislation on the website.
So good process of elimination there, but the answer is B.
Oh, darn. Okay.
You were close. Good thought process there, though. So just in terms of looking at the question, you're right to say, what should you do first? So you eliminate A because it's writing to letters to all members of the Senate and the House. The way bills and legislation are handled, they go to, a committee of jurisdiction, and those people have to weigh in, and the committee would have to pass a bill, or subcommittee even beforehand. And so that broad targeting the whole legislature makes that not a great answer. The lobbyist one, you can rule out because the lobbyist isn't informing your members directly. the lobbyist is going through the chief staff executive, and then the chief staff executive is relaying the information to the membership, so that we're directly there is sort of your red flag that that's not a good answer. And then to get between B and D, obviously you want to inform your membership, you know, and keep them apprised of what's going on in case you do need them for grassroots or something. But really, if you want to contest the legislation, you're better off finding your allies or working together with folks with whom you can create a coalition. So that's really where B gets us to our best answer. I think what you would do is you would get together with those like-minded organizations, strategize about what to do to defeat or amend the legislation. And following that might be that you would post updates and keep the membership informed through the website. I think that answer D is pretty narrow in terms of like, you know, sort of live tweeting or getting info on your website, whereas B is a broader strategic approach to defeating the legislation.
That makes sense.
Okay, our next one.
Potentially impactful legislation is working its way through the U.S. House of Representatives. What is the best way for rank and file members of an association advocating for the legislation to help influence passage of the legislation? A, send money to the association's PAC. B, write to the Speaker of the House of Representatives. C, they need to avoid involvement as direct contact with legislators is prohibited. D, meet with their legislators in their home district to explain why the legislation would be beneficial. Process of elimination here to me, I would eliminate B, right to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, kind of going off what you just explained, Amy, about how that wouldn't really affect this legislation for have everyone write the Speaker of the House. I don't think it's C as well, because members are allowed to have contact with their legislatures. To me, the answer that makes the most sense is D, meet with their legislatures in their home district, because that's how most things would get done.
Yeah, good thought process there. Yeah, sending your money to the PAC just kind of doesn't make sense. So that's, you know, one you can rule out there. And in terms of writing to the speaker, it's too narrow, right? He's just one legislator among the whole body. And as you said, of course, people can contact their legislators, you know, and if individuals are doing it, that's not actually defined as lobbying. And then, so you've got to D then, which is your right answer, having folks meet with their legislator and explain them. And, you know, that is a big part of what organizations do. We went up to Washington last week to meet with one of our members of Congress to talk to them about something. So yeah, it can be really fun if you've never been to Capitol Hill and gone and done that. So D is the right answer on that one. Okay. 11.
I take this one.
Thank you.
As Chief Staff Executive, which of the following is the best role in government relations that you can play with the Board of Directors? Inform the board of the public policy positions that you have approved. No need to discuss issues with the board as government relations is your domain. Designate a board member to bring regular updates to each board meeting. Provide the board regular updates on active and pending legislation and issues on the horizon. I would say D, provide the board regular updates.
Yeah, that's the right answer. And I think even in reviewing the pages in this section of this study guide beforehand, it might even exactly say that is the role of the chief staff executive in informing the board. Just sort of deeper analyzing why the other answers are bad or not great is, for A, inform the board of the positions that you have approved. I mean, the you as the chief staff executive aren't the one approving the policy positions, the board is. So that's why that's a bad answer. B, no need to discuss it with the board is just sort of bad association management. So that's why we eliminate that one. And C, designate a board member to bring updates to the board might be something you do. But the best role is what gets you to D, the keeping your board informed with the regular updates. Okay.
Okay, 12, your association's public policy committee has developed an important new public policy position. Who should approve the public policy? A, the board of directors, B, chief staff executive, C, the public policy committee, or D, membership through a vote. Again, we just said it's not, I mean, I think I just have to default to the board. I would assume the public policy committee has already approved it if they've developed it, kind of thing. Again, we don't typically take it to the entire membership. That's kind of the whole purpose of the public policy committee. And then as we just discussed, it's not necessarily the chief staff executive's role to approve public policy positions. So I would go with A, the board.
Right. Yeah, good thinking there. And in terms of the committee is making a recommendation. Usually committees make a recommendation to the board on action the board should take. So yeah, A is the right answer on that one. Good job. And you can see obviously in the questions, there's themes that, run through various questions. And I think when you're studying just one domain at a time, you kind of get focused on that. We had multiple questions of the PAC and then, coalitions and different things, policy positions. And you just have to remember when you're taking the exam that the questions are scattered throughout across the domain. So when I took it, it was still a paper test. I think now it's all online now, right? And so I don't know what ease there is in flipping back and forth, but just being able to have that mindset that you can switch from domain to domain and shift gears in your thinking a little bit, but it's always going to serve you well if you're thinking sort of what are those keywords in the questions? If it's saying, what's the best thing to do? What's the first thing to do? What should the staff do, or whatever those little keywords are. And then to the extent that you can eliminate answer options because they're too limiting or too broad or, don't meet that first or best, whatever that criteria is that's laid out in the question. So, okay, there's a couple more questions from one of the other study guides. So here now we've got what's going on with the Forestry Association.
Take this one. The Forestry Association has just expanded its staff to include a government relations department. As a senior staff member, you were asked to attend a brainstorming session to identify issues and trends affecting the membership and stakeholders. During the first meeting, packets of data and research materials were handed out to all participants. In addition to copies of the mission, goals, and strategic plan, what other information should have been included in the packet? A, lapsed members for the past 18 months. B, list of organizations for prospective coalition. C, retention statistics. D, recruitment strategies. In context of this question, I don't believe any of, in my opinion, I don't think the membership data makes much sense. So my answer would be B, list of organizations for a prospective coalition.
Right, right. Good answer. I think the other items are all useful if you're talking about some sort of membership strategizing meeting. So obviously here it's the organizations for coalition. So anyone want to take this next one?
I can take it. The Board of Directors wants to establish a public policy program. What is the next step for advancing this initiative once issues and priorities have been identified? Identifying media outlets and their anchors, developing goals to measure effectiveness, scanning national headlines for issues and stories relevant to the goals and missions of your organization, scheduling meetings with the marketing department for brochures and press releases. I would say B, developing the goals to measure effectiveness.
Yep, yep. The others are all, interesting, good things to do, but probably not directly tied to your next step in your public policy program. You've got to, scan, plan, implement. It falls in that line of you planning by setting your goals. Okay. So the next one.
All right. When setting up a government relations program, you should consider the following first. A, set up a PAC and solicit contributions. B, hire a lobbying firm. C, set up a new staff department dedicated to government relations. Or D, determine what specifically the association and membership wish to promote and defend. So again, kind of seems like D is the obvious first step, and the other steps would come after D.
Or not at all, right?
Right.
I think that's why you can eliminate them, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't have to have a PAC, you don't have to have a lobbying firm, and you don't have to have, dedicated staff. It could just be the chief staff executive does, the government affairs and lobbying work.
Yeah.
So yeah, D there. So you wish they were all this easy to think through. So, okay, I think this is our last one.
What is the most effective when managing your contract lobbyist? A, have the lobbyist give you written activity reports weekly. B, play the role of coach while the lobbyist plays the role of quarterback. C, monitor and manage the fees paid to and additional expenses incurred by the lobbyist. D, give your lobbyist the overall goal with exclusive authority to conduct the campaign as needed to achieve that goal. I'm struggling a little bit with this one. A doesn't seem to be like the broadest view, the highest view here. B seems to be worded too colloquially to me, but maybe that could also be correct. I don't know that you want to just be managing and monitoring the fees, but I'm tripping over the exclusive authority term there to conduct the campaign. So oh no.
You're on the right track. You think it's good.
I guess maybe I would go with D, even though I don't like that clause in there, but I'd be willing if anybody else has a guess what they would say.
Yeah, my thought was B, even though I agree with you, it's like the most casually phrased one, only because the word exclusive authority was giving me pause in D. You don't, because you're a contract lobbyist is still acting on your behalf. Again, I'm maybe a little too much in the weeds because I am in the government relations role in my organization. So you don't want your contract lobbyist doing something in a way that would reflect poorly on your association. So that's why I would kind of default to B, is that like you're still kind of giving the lobbyist the rules of the road.
Yeah, you've got it there. It's B, and as terrible of a question this is, I think we always struggle. I think, it is very casually worded, and to, obviously taking the sports metaphor way too far. But, the A is a tactic, and weekly might not be timely enough when you're in the throes of a busy legislative activity. So that's how you eliminate that one. Fees and stuff doesn't, monitoring the fees is again too narrow. And then you guys are right in thinking that you felt really uncomfortable with that exclusive authority phrase to it. So B is the right one, right? The chief staff executive or the director or VP of government affairs is setting the guardrails for the lobbyists, or what the expectations are and what the outcome are, calling the plays, and then the quarterback is executing the plays as they're on the ground meeting with legislators. So B is the right answer on that one. Yeah, and sometimes there are just sort of oddly worded questions like that in there. You do have the opportunity, or at least you used to say like, I think that was really not a great question, and weigh in on that at the end of the exam.
I was gonna say 2020 exam or study guide seems a little too not inclusive.
Yeah, I do think the
Alter.
questions in the guides have gotten better over time. So
Yeah.
Let's see here. Trying to get back to the Zoom so I can see you all again. I don't understand what's gone on with there we go. So I'm sorry I couldn't see you all. It was during it, but you all went through the questions well. Were there any other, hopefully there's nothing or anything in the chat that we needed to catch up on? Okay. Any other questions or comments on anything government affairs or advocacy related?
On the exam, when you took it, did you feel like this was a big part of the exam? For me, this is probably my weakest area. I would say like PACs and all that stuff. But how specific do you think the exam goes into detail?
I think that it's in the study guide, doesn't it give you the percent of for each domain, like how many questions will be on that? I think that held pretty true. I do recall that there were instances where there might be harkening back to SAT days or something, where there's a little sort of narrative or case study to read, and there might be 2 or 3 questions. So there might be an instance where something is a more strategic question, leadership thing, and then it might have like a government affairs component to it. But I do think knowing things like, the PAC name needs to match the PAC, the name of the association, and that it should be political action committee and not fund or anything like that. Knowing, some of the rules on lobbying, which again, I think looking at the study guide notes, there's just a few memorization things. If you just sort of lock them in, you'll be okay on that. And then, again, there were some questions I recall related to coalitions and sort of what's the best way to put one of those together. And I think the sample questions we had today are representative of those kind of things. Like, you need to make sure you're all on the same page, and then you would develop your strategy together and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think the questions are a good sample and representation, and I don't remember it being sort of an outsized portion of the exam. I would just say, you know, remember that you're thinking through the lens of somebody who is running a large, well-staffed, well-resourced association in Washington. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Are most of you taking the exam in May, or are you just sort of in the initial stages?
I'm doing December.
I'm
December.
Yeah.
I'm trying for May, I think. So
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so I would just say keep going through the study guide questions, and if there's sample tests and things like that, to just have that mindset thinking of, you know, and also just knowing how to parse the questions. If there's either the keyword in the question or the phrases in the answers that make you uncomfortable because it's exclusive or first or best or whatever it is, that's really, you know, what you need to have the right mindset to take the test. So yeah. But like I said, I've got some, you know, resources that are now pretty old but you know, passed down from some beloved other VSAE members that I can share with Chrissy to pass along with you guys. But I'd be happy to connect with any of you guys on LinkedIn, or if you just wanted to chat or anything. I'm going to put my email here in the chat, so you have that, and my cell if you want to call or text or anything. Be happy to connect with you all, and you know, a lot of good smart CAEs out there, and I know you guys are gonna make the ranks.
thank you so much. Thank you for your time and all the explanations on the questions. It was really great.
Yeah, and other domains, like I said, I've you know, been through them all, and facilitated on some other topics and stuff too. So if you get hung up on any other ones, I'd be happy to chat with you all. Okay. Well, if nobody has any other questions or anything, we can call it a study session and give you back the rest of your time. It's nice to meet you all, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.